Viserys Targaryen here, and I just wanted you to know, Christmas is coming.
But let's move on to kind of our last topic of the stream. But the last topic is going to be the whole idea with Cersei's plot and Feast for Crows, really, on this whole idea of who is the Valonqar, who is the younger, more beautiful queen that's going to take basically everything she wants or loves or whatever. Let's talk about, again, the more younger, beautiful queen, whatever. I would think you can limit this down to a couple options. So the first option is Marjorie. She's the one that's presented in the book. That's the one Cersei believes is the correct one, so it's probably not her. But again, she does kind of check all the boxes, right? She is someone that is described as being very beautiful. She is someone that is in a position to kind of take Cersei's kids away from her, I guess, having sway over them. She could potentially, the Tyrells in her mind, be trying to take her down, which I don't know if they're trying to kill her, but they definitely don't want her in power. That's very apparent by what Cersei's been doing. I don't think it's Marjorie. She's just too obvious. She's just too, in your face. Oh, this is what Cersei believes. When in reality, it's Marjorie doesn't give me those vibes. Marjorie gives me the vibes that, she's trying to, A, gain a little bit of power for the Tyrells, but also be a good queen. So, it's not her. So, let's move on. This is my personal favorite option because I think it makes the most sense given where the story's going. Arianne, for me, makes the most sense. Because Arianne is a character that is going to be coming to King's Landing, probably with Aegon. She's always described as being very beautiful. Our first introduction into Arianne, outside of the Doran and Arya Hoda stuff, the real introduction into her is basically her seducing this dude, Eris Okard. He's a dude. He's just a dude, and showing again how she's able to use her beauty and to manipulate people. And that kind of reminds you a lot of Cersei when you really think about it. So I think Arianne makes a lot of sense given that I think her children are possibly going to die because of maybe the Sand Snakes, the Dornish as a whole, taking over King's Landing with Aegon. So that makes a lot of sense to me. And throwing her down. Now, we'll talk about Ashley's here in a second, but let's keep going with this. Sansa. Does Sansa fit that role? Sansa's a weird one because it would be very interesting, right? Because when you think about the things that are presented in Feast for Crows, it actually makes you think a lot about Sansa in the earlier books. Why did Cersei treat Sansa a certain way? Because again, Sansa was the person that was originally going to marry Joffrey, right? Sansa was initially Marjorie, what Marjorie is to the story now, where Sansa was going to be the queen. And so that was also presented as an idea. Sansa is someone that's learning to play the Game of Thrones and wants to get revenge on the Lannisters and things like that. And that's very possible. My problem with Sansa is I think she has too much going on in the Vale. And I also think she's going to be more focused on the Riverlands and then kind of the North as a whole. I don't think she's going to really be involved too much in that Southern plot. So the next idea that I think is the last real logical one, I can't think of any other ones, would be what Ashley suggested, and that's Brienne. And it'd be a really interesting twist because Brienne does have the name of Brienne the Beauty. It's something that's very constant in both Jaime and Brienne's arcs and Feast for Crows specifically. And so this would be interesting because Brienne will be, Jaime seems has some sort of feelings for her. And so Brienne will be taking Jaime from her. Now the real question would be, what else? Because the biggest problem with that idea is Cersei doesn't really love Jaime. She loves that Jaime is basically her because it's her twin. She has a very egotistical view of Jaime. She uses Jaime quite a lot. One of the biggest things we kind of remember is this scene, right, when in the first book when Arya is missing. Cersei wanted Jaime to go find her and kill her, more or less, right? And it's Cersei using sex, and we see this, she uses this in Feast for Crows a lot and just throughout the story, to make him do that, make him feel that way. She gets him in a very vulnerable state to do those things. So Cersei doesn't really like or love Jaime. She likes the idea of him and all those things. But I do think Brienne the Beauty or Brienne just being this person would be really interesting as well. Yeah, so Ander got that one right. The thing with Brienne is it's about her inner beauty and things like that. And also You could spin it this way as well. If Jaime views her as being somewhat attractive because of her personality and stuff like that, like that also could be switched. Beauty is something that's very like the eye of the beholder, right? Like you can think something's beautiful and I might not think it's something's beautiful. Like you guys might think this tree is ugly. I might say this tree is beautiful. Like, I don't know. All right, so I just wanted to interrupt this video because I didn't really talk about the actual Valonqar like prophecy for who's gonna kill Cersei. Like we kind of danced around it a little bit, but we didn't really like hit it head on. So I'm gonna do this on a separate recording. But for me personally, when I look at the idea of who is going to kill Cersei, Cersei in her own mind thinks it's Tyrion because he's kind of the obvious choice. He's the younger brother. He's the person that Cersei thinks about. And so somebody in my chat did mention the idea like maybe George R. R. Martin is just basically giving us the answer and then we're overthinking it, right? Maybe that's a possibility, but I don't think so. I think it's much more poetic if Jaime is the one to kill her. And I think some of the things that I don't remember if they actually ended up in the video or not, but one of the things I think is great between Jaime and Cersei is they are two characters that are completely entwined, right? Like they're constantly being talked about how they came into this world together, they'll leave together, you know, and all that. Also, we have the parallels of Aerys and Cersei and how they came to an end. I think to me, for Cersei to go out, it's going to be with Jaime. It's going to be a complete shock for her as a character. It's going to be almost that completion of that arc of she's lost everything. Like that other half of her isn't even like loyal to her anymore, doesn't have those feelings for her, and is the reason that she dies. Like that I think is a really compelling arc for me. And it's one of the reasons I struggle with Cersei's death specifically, just based upon the fact that like, okay, when does Cersei die? Is she going to die at the end of Winds of Winter? If Young Griff takes King's Landing, is she gonna die in Casterly Rock or in the West? What point of the story is George going to kill her off? That's something we talk about quite a lot in the stream and in this video specifically. So I think that'd be my big question is like, I still think regardless Jaime is going to kill Cersei, but do you think she's going to die at the end of Winds of Winter or more in A Dream of Spring? But I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the video. But the thing about Tyrion, I think it's too on the nose. And I also don't see how Tyrion, unless Cersei survives the sack of King's Landing, which I've talked about, I don't really like. Like, if it happens, you know, so be it. I just think it makes more sense to have her die to Young Griff. If King's Landing is taken, it makes more sense for her to die. But either way, I think it makes the most amount of sense Jaime killing Cersei. I think it's poetic for their character arcs, and I think it's been hinted at quite a lot. I think it would really do wonders for Cersei's character as well. If you're sitting here and you're going, oh, she's been, you know, hating her brother so much and all of this because of this prophecy, and here the whole time she had it wrong. And it was Jaime the entire time. I think that would be a nice payoff for her to have that realization maybe before she dies. Like, that's a whole nother idea. Like, will Cersei be the POV when she dies? Is it going to be Jaime? Would it be, you know, whoever you think is going to be in the room or whatever? That would be really cool. I like that idea as well. That Tyrion kills Jaime and Cersei and then regrets it, right? He feels that pain and loss of losing family. I agree, actually. I think that makes it really a great idea because the whole time, like, Cersei is looking for something that she doesn't even, like, realize, right? Like, she doesn't look at those. It's the same thing we see with Sansa, right? Like, Sansa in book 1 specifically is more about the materialistic stuff. She's more about the physical stuff. When we see, like, her describing knights, it's how they look, right? It has nothing to do with their character. And that's something that's very apparent with, like, her relationship with Joffrey in book 1 as well. It's like, oh, Joffrey is very handsome. I mean, he looks very gallant, but she misreads all of the inner signs. That's something that Sansa kind of gets from Cersei almost, right? Like, that's why she kind of looks up to Cersei so much. I don't remember the exact text, though. I don't know if it says queen in it, though. So take that as a grain of salt. I don't remember exactly. But where's Tyrion's revenge? So yeah, Andrew, that's the flip side of it, right? Like, I go back and forth on these because at the same time, if the way I think events would play out that makes sense, I don't know where you get that. Like, where does Tyrion come in? Because the timing wouldn't make sense, right? Like, so if Tyrion's going to have some involvement in that, it's going to be probably like middle to end of Dance. Or not Dance, Dream. But I agree. I think it's a great point. Agreed, Violet. Like, that's a great point. Like, the way she views her children, like you mentioned, are an extension of herself. She is someone that doesn't really care about anyone. She's very like egotistical. She's very all worried about me. Jaime killing Cersei like he did his king is very poetic because we see more and more how close her her character is to Aerys. Yeah, the two just have way too many similarities, right? Cersei is kind of getting into wildfire. She's kind of losing her mind. She has another Merryweather as hand. There's a lot of similarities there, you know. I agree. Seeing, you know, foes where there are friends, I think that's another big one. I believe, or I've heard the younger, more beautiful person could be Cersei herself, meaning her inner child who heard the prophecy and whose paranoia has driven Cersei to make horrible decisions that only put her closer to her fate. That's a great idea. I really like that idea as well, Ashley. That's a really good theory. Having Cersei be the bringer of this prophecy. Very similar to, like, Star Wars. When you look at, like, The Chosen One, where Anakin is having these dreams and, you know, he's trying to avoid them, and he's the one that ends up causing them. That's a really, I do like that idea.